I have a theory that I'm working through that I'm going to petition to you guys, and maybe you'll understand my thought process on it. So I've been doing a lot of research on regenerative agriculture, right? And in that, one of the things that I've heard multiple of these people say, and of course this is not necessarily a close-knit group, but it's a group of people who are similar, so they know each other. But one of the things I heard one of the farmers who's doing regenerative agriculture say is, if we set things in the proper order according to nature, then we reap from the abundance. And if you know anything about regenerative agriculture, it's essentially taking and mimicking, the grazing habits of animals and the pest cycle, the parasite cycle, the symbiotic relationship of the grass and the dirt and the worms and the bugs and the birds and the cows and the chickens and the land. Like, all of those things kind of work together, right? And ultimately what you get in the back end is a product which is good earth, which also sequesters carbon, meaning it eats the carbon out of the atmosphere. The reason this has been so intriguing to me, one, because I've always been one of those people who I want to have my own animals and farms and things like that. But the reason it's been so interesting to me is just looking at how much setting things in the order that God intended can really just mitigate all of the issues that we see going on in the earth, especially from a natural standpoint. Like, I'm not even talking about like politically or how people feel and how people are treated. I'm talking about in terms of, like, right now, this is pertaining to like greenhouse gases and stuff. And the reason it's a thought that I'm working through is because if you think about Adam, when he was put in the Garden of Eden, God gave him a couple of commands, but the main command was take dominion over the earth, be fruitful and multiply. And this is after Eve was created. So it's man and woman. So Adam and Eve were given the task of take dominion of the earth, meaning be good stewards, take ownership, take responsibility, and then at that point, cultivate and mold that into the order that I've already said. Keep the order going the way I've said it, and then be fruitful and multiply. After the fall of man, the order that God set in place was permanently thrown askew. And the reason it was thrown askew is because the task that we were assigned to do to keep things in order, we were no longer able to do it because we were out of order. And it took God going through all that he went through and all the children of Israel went through in the Old Testament to set up the coming of Christ, to reset us so that we can go back to taking care of the initial task that he gave us, which is take dominion of the earth, cultivate it, make it great, keep it great, make everything work the way it's supposed to, but then also be fruitful and multiply. But now, since sin has entered the world, we have an additional ask or task through Christ of spreading the gospel so that others can be reset back to the natural order or back to God's order. When you think about the wealth that comes from, like I said, regenerative agriculture, where, you're taking the natural movements of the animals and you're reaping the benefits of a larger herd or better grass or better earth or better air quality and birds and bees and everything. And you see how nature works and it grows and they reproduce and they blossom. When you see that abundance of wealth and health and happiness, that is the being fruitful and multiply. And that is also the result of setting things to the order in which God intended. Regenerative agriculture is no more than nature like it happens in the savannah or nature like it happens in some of the wild jungles. It's literally everything has its place. It does its job. And when it does its job and it is managed properly, things grow. We have been fighting against God's order as a culture for so long. And we're wondering why things just get worse and worse. Why it seems that nobody's benefiting, everybody's greedy, people are sick, people are dying. And it comes back to the fact that we are out of order. Therefore, there is no abundance when the order is disrupted. Going back to agriculture, if you think about how we talk about the things that are wrong with the animals and how modern day farming is basically killing the atmosphere because of all the emissions and all of the diseases and things we see happening in the cows, bird flu, swine flu, and mad cow disease, prions, and all this stuff. We don't know where it comes from. And they're full of parasites. They're full of abscesses and things like that. That is because they are not in their natural order. Now, that doesn't mean that these things can't occur in nature, but it does mean that the likelihood of these things occurring in nature is much less. In essence, we're making it easy for bad things to happen because we are out of order. And when you apply that to your life, being in the same order that God wanted you to be in, understanding who Christ is, understanding who you are and what you mean to Christ, as well as what your job is on earth, will set you in the natural order. And while it will not guarantee you physical wealth, while it will not guarantee you physical things, it will guarantee you spiritual wealth, spiritual prosperity, where you are at peace And that is where the church has differentiated and messed up. We've preached so long that being right with Christ means you'll get the physical, and we have negated the spiritual, when the wealth and prosperity and the abundance that Christ has talked about throughout the entirety of the New Testament has been on the spiritual side all along. The physical does not matter. It's just stuff. It comes and goes. But if you set yourself in the natural order that God wanted from the beginning, the way he put Adam and Eve in the garden, then you will set yourself up to reap the abundance of God's order.